Hello everybody, Maven here, and no face cam today. That was just a copy paste from another video. Anyways, it is time to go over the god rolls of all of the brand new weapons coming out in the Into the Light DLC. Bungie has released an article going over all of the possible rolls these weapons can get. Now keep in mind, obviously this is an opinion oriented video. We all have our own opinion of what a god roll is. I'm just going to be sharing mine. I'll include timestamps just in case you wanted to skip ahead to a specific weapon, and let's get right into it. So we have the reissued Forbearance. In the third column, it gets Unrelenting, Stats for All, Demolitionist, Ambitious Assassin, Surplus, Steady Hands, and Disruption Break. And in the right column, we got Wellspring, Golden Tricorn, One for All, Bait and Switch, Chain Reaction, Rampage, and Desperate Measures. Now, if you did watch the Bungie stream, Desperate Measures had a different name. It was called Last Stand, and it says that weapon final blows grant bonus damage, melee and grenade final blows grant a larger damage bonus that can stack. So it's very, very reminiscent of Golden Tricorn. However, Golden Tricorn is a bit more needy, requiring you to have a powered melee final blow or a grenade final blow, but it gives you a 50% damage buff if you can manage to get that to happen. Last Stand seems a little bit less needy, so I would assume it's not going to be a 50% damage buff. I would guess it's somewhere around the realm of 30%. But we do not yet know if the buff is refreshable. So it seems like a decent perk when you read it, but we'll have to wait and see what it actually does. So here's my 2 cents about the reissued Forbearance. I don't think you want to get a new Forbearance, guys. I think you want to stick with the old one. It gets the same god roll of Ambitious Assassin, Chain Reaction. I wouldn't recommend any other rolls. Maybe you could make an argument for Demolitionist, but the old origin trait of Soul Drinker is the reason why the old Forbearance is so good. Because it's somewhat giving you built-in unrelenting, and that health regeneration is very clutch in a lot of situations for the old Forbearance. And the new origin trait is somewhat built-in Demolitionist, but we all know it's not going to be anywhere as strong as Demolitionist. It's probably only going to give us like 2% grenade energy back on final blows. We all know it's not going to be that good. It's going to be like classy contender. So yeah, stick with the old Forbearance, guys. And next up, we got the reissued Succession. In the third column, we got Moving Target, No Distractions, Lead from Gold, Reconstruction, Firmly Planted, Demolitionist, and Discord. And in the right side column, we got Snapshot, Sights, Redirection, Recombination, Vorpal Weapon, Focus Fury, Firing Line, Box Breathing, and Desperate Measures, aka Last Stand. So it looks like there's really no groundbreaking rolls here. The god roll is still the same as before, Reconstruction, Vorpal. However, don't bother yourself with Succession because the Supremacy Sniper is 10 times better. Just get that instead. Next up, we got the Falling Guillotine, and now we're talking power. In the third column, we got Vorpal Weapon, Relentless Strikes, Repulsor Brace, Frenzy, Attrition Orbs, Chain Reaction, and Duelist Trance. In the right side column, we got Surrounded, Whirlwind Blade, Destabilizing Rounds, Eager Edge, Bait and Switch, Sword Logic, and Desperate Measures. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Vorpal Weapon and Bait and Switch are in separate columns. That is ridiculous. This is going to be an insane DPS sword. This will 1000% be a meta roll, no doubt, and this is a roll you're going to want to chase. But also keep an eye out for the roll of Chain Reaction and Eager Edge. I've waited for this roll for so long, you don't understand, and it's pained me every time a sword came out with Eager Edge and Chain Reaction. They've always been in the same column. I'm so glad we can finally get this roll. You know, we all like to skate around with an Eager Edge sword to farm through quick content, and now when there's a giant group of ads, we can just throw out a couple sword swings and suddenly they all explode. It's going to be fantastic. So definitely get yourself a Vorpal bait roll for boss damage and then Chain Reaction Eager Edge for just general gameplay. Next up, we got the Recluse. In the third column, we got Feeding, Frenzy, Enlightened Action, Subsistence, Threat Detector, Repulsor Brace, Hipfire Grip, and Dynamic Sway Reduction. And in the fourth column, we got Master of Arms, Target Lock, Frenzy, Destabilizing Rounds, Surrounded, Tap the Trigger, and Desperate Measures. So we all thought Master of Arms was OP back in the day. We learned that it only gives you a 15% damage buff, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's somewhat like Harmony. I'm not really too hyped about Master of Arms, to be honest, but to each their own. But we don't know yet if Master of Arms is going to have a much more forgiving timer than Harmony, and if it does, it could be a good Crucible perk. But looking at the Crucible rolls here, there's a lot to be desired. In the first column, there's things like Threat Detector and Dynamic Sway Reduction. And in the fourth column, there's things like Tap the Trigger. And that's about it. Target Lock got nerfed on SMGs. You really don't have a lot going here. Speaking of which, for PvE, in the first column, I would 1000% go with Subsistence. I think this is an S++ tier perk. And even if I was going for a void like Gear Falcon's Hauberk roll, I wouldn't go Repulsor Brace Destabilizing. I would 100% go Subsistence Destabilizing. because Subsistence is just too good to pass up early. Just generally though, I would go with Frenzy. Subsistence Frenzy, in my opinion, is the best role you can have on an ad clear PvE primary. You can never go wrong with that. Grants you plus 100 reload speed, makes the gun feel very efficient. However, there's also that Desperate Measures perk, and on a gun like this, and especially paired with Subsistence, that actually could be very good. And to proc that bigger damage buff from Desperate Measures, you gotta get a melee or grenade final blow. And remember, the origin trait is kind of like built-in Demolitionist in a way, so it may be pretty good synergy with Desperate Measures. So Subsistence with Desperate Measures or Frenzy would definitely be the role that I would look out for. Next up, the one we are all the most hyped about, the Mountaintop. Third column, Ambitious Assassin, Impulse Amplifier, Demolitionist, Lead from Gold, Slick Draw, Autoloading Holster, and Overflow. And in the fourth column, Rampage, Vorpal, Adrenaline Junkie, One for All, Harmony, Recombination, and Frenzy. So in the first column here, I can see arguments for Ambitious Assassin, Demolitionist, Lead from Gold, Overflow, but for me personally, the clear winner is going to be Autoloading Holster, no doubt. You just cannot go wrong with that perk. The only way I can justify Ambitious Assassin is if there was a collateral type of perk in the other column, like Chain Reaction or Incandescent, but there's nothing like that. So you're only going to have a damage perk in the right column, meaning that Autoloading Holster is definitely going to be the clear winner. And I know a lot of people are looking at that juicy recombination, because every once in a while you pull it out, you get that double damage shot and get excellent burst damage. But personally for me, I would go with something like Vorpal or Frenzy, because an autoloading Mountaintop is the kind of thing that I would pull out every few seconds. Every single time it hits that autoloading trigger, I would pull it out and use it. I wouldn't have enough time to stack up that recombination feasibly, so I would rather go with something with more consistent damage output like Vorpal or Frenzy if I'm going to spam it. I gotta do some testing, but it's between Vorpal and Frenzy for me personally, along with autoloading. That's gonna be my god roll. And now some of you toxic PvP players out there who want this thing for Crucible, I'm sorry, but they did mention that the Mountaintop will no longer be able to one-shot people in Crucible with a direct impact shot. And also back then, they nerfed the thing's airborne effectiveness like crazy. It's incredibly inaccurate when you jump in the air with it. But if you did want to use it for PvP, I think the perk you want in the first column is gonna be between Slick Draw or Demolitionist. Yes, that sounds kind of crazy. Autoloading doesn't really make any sense anymore in the new way PvP works in this sandbox. So Slick Draw is going to give you maxed out handling, which is going to be very good for hot swapping, right? Demolition is going to give you some grenade energy. Everything else doesn't really matter. Impulse Amplifier doesn't matter because the thing already has infinite velocity. And in the right side column, I think the winner is Harmony, because if you proc that, there's a chance that it will be able to one-shot a Guardian with a direct hit. And next we're moving on to Hammerhead, everyone's baby. I remember farming so much for this thing back in the day. In the third column, we got Feeding Frenzy, Destabilizing Rounds, Envious Assassin, Rampage, Fourth Time's a Charm, Rewind Rounds, and Under Over. And in the fourth column, we got Surrounded, High Impact Reserves, Target Lock, Onslaught, Killing Tally, Desperate Measures, and Tap the Trigger. So I'm gonna say right now, while the role of Rewind Rounds plus Onslaught sounds appealing and will be fun, machine guns are the type of weapons that you really want to preserve your ammo with. So I think Onslaught's off the table. Clearly the winner in the right side column is going to be Killing Tally. There's no way Desperate Measures is going to contend with that. Killing Tally is by far the best machine gun perk in Destiny 2. And this is the first time ever that Killing Tally could be paired along with Rampage, because it's in the first column. And that's going to be nutty. Killing Tally giving you that 30% damage buff, then Rampage giving you a 33% damage buff. This thing is going to hit like a truck and just absolutely melt through ads. But I will say, I would only really use the Rampage Killing Tally roll on a class that has a method of insta reloading your weapon. If you have to reload manually, then that's going to be a no on Rampage Killing Tally for me. In general, I'd probably just use Rewind Rounds Killing Tally, especially in tougher content like Master and Grandmaster, because usually your mag's not going to be big enough for that Rampage Killing Tally to matter in like a Grandmaster. And you want a bigger mag size, which is why the Commemoration with Reconstruction is so good in that very high level endgame content. So I would only use Rampage Killing Tally on a class that has a method of insta reloading your weapon. Next up, we got the Blast Furnace. In the third column, we got Zen Moment, Snapshot, Sights, Shoot to Loot, Keep Away, Perpetual Motion, Kinetic Tremors, and Head Seeker. And in the fourth column, we got Kill Clip, Firefly, One for All, Frenzy, Rampage, Rapid Hit, and Desperate Measures. Now, I always mention this in my videos, but pulse rifles are by far far the weakest weapon type in PvE. However, they are useful in content where you need them to stun champions. And in that case, having kinetic tremors with frenzy is going to be absolutely ridiculous. This is actually going to be the best PvE pulse rifle in the game, no doubt about that at all. And for PvP, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time we've had a pulse with Headseeker in the left side column. And we can pair Headseeker along with Kill Clip, kind of like the Chattering Bone did, but the difference is the Chattering Bone's a 450 RPM, which is not the best pulse archetype. This is definitely a little bit better, but we can also pair it along with Desperate Measures, which if that's anything like Golden Tricorn and lasts 7 seconds or more, that's also going to be very good to get very consistent 2 taps after that kill. But we also got to be honest with ourselves, who's really using 4-burst pulses in Crucible? So I think that nobody's really going to use this, but for PvE, it's definitely a clear winner with that Kinetic Tremors Frenzy. Next up, we got the Edge Transit Grenade Launcher. In the third column, got Chain Reaction, Cascade Point, Impulse Amplifier, Field Prep, Ambitious Assassin, Envious Assassin, and Repulsive Race. And in the right side column, we got Frenzy, Destabilizing Rounds, Deconstruction, One for All, Bait and Switch, Full Court, and Explosive Light. Now there is one perk combination that is really standing out to me here, and that is Cascade Point with Bait and Switch. And keep in mind, this is a 120 RPM. That burst damage is going to be absolutely ridiculous. So if you're doing some niche speed run and you really need to kill a boss in like 1 second, this is definitely something you're gonna want. But just generally, as a typical Destiny player, I don't think you really got to interest yourself in that. But as a standalone DPS heavy GL, I think the Cataphract is going to be better because it can get auto-loading holster and bait and switch. But if you're picky and you want an adept but you can't go flawless in trials, then maybe you can get this instead with something like Envious Assassin and bait and switch. That can give you some good DPS. And next up is Luna's Howl. In the left side column, you got Eye of the Storm, Subsistence, Discord, Encore, Slide Shot, Enlightened Action, and Heal Clip. And in the right side column, you get Magnificent Howl, Heal Clip, Incandescent Desperate Measures, Opening Shot, Precision Instrument, and Harmony. So there is a really, really nasty potential PvE role here of Subsistence or Slide Shot along with Magnificent Howl. Magnificent Howl got a little bit of a rework, so you get precision final blows. When you reload, your next mag is going to have some bonus damage shots based on the number of precision final blows you got in the previous mag. So Subsistence and Slide Shot are going to make sure that our initial magazine is very, very large and we can rack up as much precision final blows as we want to. And then our next mag is just going to be full of bonus damage shots. We don't know how much bonus damage that's going to be, but regardless, we're going to have a really strong gun and we can keep that chain going, keep on getting more precision final blows. We're loading, our entire mag is going to be buffed. It just sounds nasty. But I will admit it also does sound kind of cute. That's more for lower level content, like easy content, and against tribes that you can hit their head like Fallen and Cabal. Because it's not going to be as easy against things like Vex, you know? So I think the more obviously consistent role here is going to be Subsistence Incandescent or Slide Shot Incandescent, just to be safe. And for the Crucible God roll here, in the first column, clearly Slide Shot, S+ tear perk on hand cannons, but in the second column, I think the winner is going to be Precision Instrument, because in a way it kind of like grants you additional range if you think about it, because if you're out of the range of your damage fall off, Precision Instrument's going to give you a little bit of bonus damage as you land hits on your target, so you're going to be able to battle at further ranges than any other Luna's Howl roll that you receive. But you also can't go wrong with things like Kill Clip, Opening Shot, and Harmony, but Precision Instrument just gives you a much stronger neutral game, and I think that matters. And also remember that the Luna's Howl and the Not Forgotten are 140 RPM hand cannons that shoot like the way 180 RPM hand cannons do. So the recoil is a lot more easier to control on controller. So if you are a controller player, you're definitely going to want to pick up the Luna's Howl. And next up is a Midnight Coup. And before even going over the rolls, I'm telling you right now, this thing's going to be so incredibly meta. It's not even funny. In the third column, you get Outlaw, Firefly, Shoot to Loot, Explosive Payload, Moving Target, Attrition Orbs, and Enlightened Action. In the right side column, you get Rampage, Kinetic Tremors, Zen Moment, One for All, Frenzy, Opening Shot, and Desperate Measures. So the previous strongest PvE hand cannon was a Fatebringer Adept that gets Explosive Payload and Frenzy, but this one has that plus the Origin trait that gives you bonus grenade energy. But not only that, you also have the option of Desperate Measures and Kinetic Tremors. Explosive Payload plus Kinetic Tremors just sounds ridiculous. That is going to be so meta. Everyone's going to be using this thing in PvE. That is just an obvious powerhouse of a roll right there. I don't think you're really looking at anything else in the first column because Explosive Payload is just way too good to pass up. I think the overall damage increase is like 30% or something. You cannot go wrong with Explosive Payload. So yeah, Explosive Payload Kinetic Tremors is going to be my god roll. And for Crucible, I'm sure a lot of PvP sweats are mad because they've wanted to use the Midnight Coup for years. And now that the best roll is like something like moving target Zen moment, they're probably very, very upset. And for those who didn't know, explosive payload in Crucible got nerfed so you can no longer 3-tap. So yeah, that's kind of off the table. And next up, we got the Hung Jury being reissued for the 4th time. In the 3rd column, we got rewind rounds, enlightened action, kinetic tremors, rapid hit, shoot to loot, no distractions, and loose change. And in the right column, we got one for all, cascade point, box breathing, firefly, precision instrument, desperate measures, and explosive payload. And I'm very happy about this because personally, I saved 2 different Hung Juries in my vault. One was the kinetic tremors roll, and one was the old explosive payload roll. And now that we can get them both together, that is crazy. Same thing, just like the Midnight Coup for Grandmaster Nightfalls, where scouts actually stun a champion. This is going to be absolutely insane. Now, there is one anomaly I want to point out about the Hung Jury here. I don't know if any other YouTuber pointed this out, but it gets loose change. It's a kinetic weapon, so it doesn't really have elemental perks. I guess there's maybe Firefly, but loose change is not really going to proc on it without the help of your subclass. And there really has to be some kind of way to use this. So I'm thinking that we're going to get a new subclass in the final shape that works off of kinetic weapons. And we're probably going to get some kind of kinetic rounds type of thing where it applies some kind of kinetic debuff. And that's going to allow us to use loose change with the Hung Jury. I think that's the only logical explanation here, so I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, once again, despite a lot of interesting roles to point out here, I think kinetic tremors and explosive payload simply going to be the best. And for Crucible, this is pretty interesting as well, because we got box breathing, no distractions again. That was the previous PvP Hung Jury God roll, and one of the most underrated Crucible weapons, to be honest. It is the fastest killing scout in the game, and it's a 180 RPM that can 3-tap. So we're getting that back, so for those who didn't get it before, you get the chance to get it again. However, we now have access to precision instrument. And if that is also going to allow it to 3-tap without needing to stay still with box breathing for a second, then that's going to be pretty ridiculous. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. But if that doesn't work, I think the PvP God roll is still going to be no distractions, box breathing. And the last weapon of the day is going to be Elsie's rifle. It's a 340 RPM pulse rifle. In the 3rd column, it gets feeding frenzy, zen moment, repulsive brace, loose change, keep away, under, over, and rewind rounds. And in the 4th column, we got adrenaline junkie, frenzy, destabilizing rounds, kill clip, desperado, desperate measures, and head seeker. So once again, pulses are the worst weapon type in PvE, and there's nothing really calling out to me here. I mean, rewind rounds, frenzy sounds kind of appealing, but still, pulses are just not that good in PvE, and so this one doesn't have anything just absolutely extraordinary that calls out to me. So we're mainly going to talk about it for Crucible here, and for me personally, the best in slot, like in the energy slot, 340 RPM pulse rifle is a Phylotactic Spiral. But this one can get keep away with kill clips, something the Phylotactic Spiral cannot get, and I think that that is incredible. Now, 90% of Crucible players would prefer Head Seeker in this situation, and keep away Head Seeker is pretty nasty. But personally, I love kill clip on 340 RPM pulses, especially on the messenger. It just absolutely shreds. So there's a decent chance this is a new best in slot 340 RPM pulse. And there you have it. It's all the weapons to go over, some absolute bangers. And Bungie needed to put out some bangers because, you know, after all the drama and stuff they've been going through lately, they gotta make some money. And dude, take my money, please. I need these guns. Especially the Mountaintop with auto-loading holster. Are you kidding me? I am never unequipping that thing. It will always stay on me at all times. I guarantee you it's going to be my most used weapon from here on out. So let me know down in the comments below what is the weapon you are most looking forward to. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to drop a like as it helps out a ton. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing as I'm on my way to 50K and you can help me get there. And thank you so much if you do. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. See you later.